Hey guys, thanks for watching. I'm Paul Salazar. Today we're going to be discussing my top 5 questions to ask when interviewing new agents. This is geared towards sellers that are have already had their house on the market, but a lot of these questions can be used even if you haven't had your house on the market. I'm Paul Salazar. I'm an agent at Hilton and Hyland Real Estate here in Beverly Hills. I've been in the industry for about 14 years, right out of college. And been at Hilton or Hyland for the last 11 years. If you guys want to follow me, feel free to check me out on Instagram at Paul Salazar Group, as well as Facebook or LinkedIn. We're also on YouTube as well. If you're on Instagram, please follow me every Thursday at 6 p.m. I do a live Q&A. If you guys want me to answer any questions that you have, feel free to chime in there at that time, or you can always give me a call or shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help in any way I can. Even if you're not from the LA area, I'm here to help and to provide value for everyone. All right, so let's get started. What are my top 5 questions? There's also a bonus question at the end, so make sure you watch the entire video. My first interview question, if I were a seller, is what is your experience and track record with selling properties that have already been sitting on the market? Again, guys, this is geared towards homeowners who have had trouble selling. I talk to these kind of homeowners every single day. For the first 2 hours of my day. Looking for sellers that need help selling. I've been doing this for the last couple years in terms of remarketing and repackaging properties that have been sitting on the market. But when you interview a new agent, and I always recommend interviewing new agents if your property has been sitting on the market for more than 3 to 6 months, however long your contract is. Once it ends, I always recommend interviewing new agents, even if you go back to that same agent, and even if it wasn't their fault. For the property not selling, it's always good to hear to get a second opinion. So always ask that new agent what their track record is in selling properties that have been sitting on the market. Down below, you see that I've done a marketing piece that I send out to homeowners that have had trouble selling, and it's just a case study of some properties like theirs that were sitting on the market for 6 months, a year, or 2 or 3 years. And I show them what I did differently to get the property sold. So on the bottom left is a property I sold for $2.35 million. Was on the market for a little bit over a year with 3 different agents, and they were not able to sell it. So we were able to put it on the market. We got 4 offers and sold it, I believe, within 20 or 25 days. The property on the right is off of Mulholland in Hollywood Hills. I sold that earlier this year for $2.45 million. This house was on the market for 3 years with 7 different agents. I ended up putting it on the market, selling it very quickly, and got 2 offers on it, and sold it for, I believe, 98% of list price. So always want to see what their track record is. Make sure that whoever you're going to hire has experience with rebranding properties that have been sitting on the market. It's super, super important. And then this next question ties directly into that track record and to see what their stats are. So the first question is, what are your averages for list to sell price ratio? And what are your average days on market? So the first one, the list to sell price ratio, is super simple, right? If a house is on the market for $3 million and it sells for $3 million, then it's 100% list to sell price ratio, right? So that's great, right? They got asking price. If it sells for over asking price, say 100 grand or whatever that is, then their list to sell price ratio could be 102%, 103%, which is amazing. Anything less than 90% is questionable, depending on your property and at what price you have listed it at. But you should try to get an agent that has somewhere around a 95% list to sell price ratio. If you see on the right, you'll see what my averages are in terms of days on market, as well as list price to sell price ratio. These are specifically average list to sell price ratio and average days on market for my expired and canceled sales. Properties that have been sitting on the market, those are the averages for those specific properties. So you can see that I've been able to sell them quickly, and I've been able to get a very, very good list to sell price ratio. The graph on the bottom right here on the slide, you can see that the longer a house sits on the market, the less you're going to get, right? So it's super important to make sure you hire somebody who's able to sell your house quickly, because the quicker they can sell your house, the more money that's going to go in your pocket. Okay, let's see here. Question number 3 is, what strategies will you use to reintroduce my property back into the market? So, if you are a seller that hasn't had your house on the market, this is not going to apply. But for the sellers that have had their house on the market for whatever amount of time without successfully selling it, it's really, really important to have a new strategy in place. When I talk to sellers every single morning and I ask them, are you looking to interview new agents? And they say, no, I think we're going to go back with our same agent. And I ask them, what new marketing strategies does that agent have this time around that didn't work last time, right? So even if they hire the same agent, obviously that's no problem, but that agent should have a new marketing strategy going forward. Otherwise, they're going to get the same results, which is, I'm going to call them back in 6 months and ask to see why it didn't sell. So here are a few examples of what I've done to transform a house in order for it to sell. This house on the left here, this is the house on that first slide that I sold for $2.35 million. You can see on that top left photo how one of the guest rooms look. And this is just one of many photos. I can show you a ton of before and after photos of this property, and you're more than welcome to check out the website of this property, 1180 Yocum, YOCUM.com, and you can see some of the photos that we have there. But on this top left photo, you can see what the previous agent used. It was a very, very dark room, heavy drapes. It had a very kind of funky looking paint. It's a nice paint, but what you want to do is you want to have a neutral colors throughout and very, very bright feeling. Bright colors, so you have that nice feeling when you walk into a room. You don't want to walk into a dark room. If this room was painted completely black and completely white, you're going to have two different emotional reactions walking into that property. So it's really important to understand that. And these are super simple things, right? Painting a room is very simple. Taking off the heavy drapery is super simple. You don't really need window coverings in a house when you sell it. When you go look at a staged house, and it's a brand new house, most of them do not have any window coverings. So you want a lot of natural light inside the house. So you can see on the bottom left, what we did is we removed all the heavy window drapes. We staged it and we painted it white. It was a very simple transformation. And this is the house that we got 4 offers, I believe, in 20 days, and we sold it for, I believe, 97% to list price. Okay, the example on the right here is a property I sold off of Mulholland, the one I was telling you about earlier in the slides, for a $2.45 million. This was on the market for 3 years with 7 different agents. So when I spoke with the owner, I was shocked because there were some really good agents on this listing and they could not sell it. So I was trying to figure out new angles to present this property to the buyer community, right? Because somebody looking close to Mulholland in the Hollywood Hills for a view property, there's probably 20, 30 buyers looking at any given time in a specific price range in that area. So when a property's been on the market for 3 years, all the buyers have already seen this house. So how do we transform the house so it looks different, right? We can do it by staging it, by painting the rooms, or by the photography and video, right? Taking new photography. So for this property, it didn't have any aerial drone photography, and it didn't have any night shots of the city views from the interior spaces. So that's what we did in order to transform this house and make it look like a new listing, a new property that just came on the market. We sold this, we got 2 offers, and we got a very, very good list to sell price ratio. I believe it was like 95 or 97%. You can see in that angle here, the previous listing did not use aerial footage, and you have a shot of the pool. You don't see what the deck looks like, and the house looks kind of small from here. They also did not remove the pool equipment from inside the pool. I'm always at the photo shoots, making sure the house looks spectacular for the photos, because that's the most important part in marketing the property, are all the photos. If you look at the bottom photo, that's the one that we took. Obviously, we took our time to prepare the house, make it look really nice. We staged all the deck area. As you can see, you have a beautiful cantilevered pool, which you don't even know if it was cantilevered or not from the first photo. And you can see how much bigger the house looks from the drone photography. So it's super important to find a new angle when marketing a property that's already been sitting on the market. Another thing is doing a property video, doing a walkthrough property video, and talking about the different features in the house. Almost like getting interviewed from like a TV station about a house. I basically walk around the house, explaining the different features and the different value adds that I can in the video. So I'll show you an example here. This is a property I sold in Beverly Hills recently. Hi, I'm Paul Salazar. Welcome to 709 North Bedford Drive, a developer's dream. Located on the desirable West End section on iconic palm tree lined street and within walking distance to the best shopping and dining Beverly Hills has to offer. As you can see, guys, from that video, I talked a little bit about the house in the beginning, and there's some shots, there's some drone shots of the house. That house is what we call, a developer's, dream house, because they're going to tear down and build something new. But we also took some shots of Rodeo Drive, all the shopping and dining, which is, just walking distance to that property. So that's what I do for all of my listings. So make sure that when you interview a new agent, ask them, are you doing a property video? Are you doing a walkthrough property video? Because that's going to be key in order for all the buyers out there that are looking. They want to see the house on the video, especially right now during the coronavirus. It's even more important to get a walkthrough video of your property. That way you get less people in your house, and once they watch the video, they can make a decision if they really want to watch it. Okay, question number 4, how well do you know the buyer pool, and how will you specifically market to them? This is a super important question, understanding who the buyers are for your property. So let's just say, for instance, I'm going to a listing appointment in Westwood, just off of Santa Monica. I know that Google is just leased out a huge part of West Pavilion Mall for the next 14 years. So they're going to have a lot of Google, a lot of tech employees coming into the space. So if it is like a single story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I'm going to know it's probably either a single person coming from Google or from other tech companies, or it's going to be a couple with a kid, or 2 kids, right? So I want to be able to understand who's buying in the area and to market to them specifically. Another example is, I was at a listing appointment the other day, and the house was 3 stories. The 3rd story was the master bedroom, and then all the guest rooms were on the lower level, and the mid level was the kitchen and the living space and dining room. So that house wasn't going to be marketed to a family, So any family that has young kids isn't going to want to have their kids on the third level and then they're on the first level. They're just way too far apart, right? They want to be on the same level or really close by to their young kids. If they got older kids, middle school, high school, then for sure that house may work for them. But it's super important to understand, or it's important for your agent to understand who the buyers are for your specific property. Because even if you're in an area that has really good school districts and you're going to have a lot of kids, a lot of families wanting to move into that area because it has really good public schools, it doesn't necessarily mean that house is meant for a family, because depending on the floor plan of your house and depending on how big your backyard is, like if you have no backyard and you have, let's just say, one of those brand new houses that takes up the entire yard and you're up against a hillside or something, so you have no yard, most likely that's not going to work for a family that has kids. So that might work for somebody younger. So what I do before I go to any listing appointment is I'm looking at all the comps, anything that's sold in the last year or even 2 years, depending on the area. And I want to make sure to Google every single one of those buyers, who's bought in that area, who's bought all those comps, right? And it's super easy nowadays. I'm able to get about 90 to 95% of the owners. I can find them on Google, LinkedIn, I can find them on Facebook, Instagram. It's super easy nowadays to find out who the buyers are. So once you find out who the buyers are, then you can figure out a marketing strategy to market to those buyers. So always ask your agent, hey, who's buying, who's the ideal buyer for my property? Can you give us an idea of who that is and how are you going to market to them? My last question, and don't forget, I'm going to have a bonus question, but my last question of my top 5 is, how can the agent's brokerage expose my property to the right buyer? Okay, so every agent works for a brokerage, right? Either they own their own brokerage or they work for a brokerage. Either there's Coldwell Banker, there's Berkshire Hathaway, there's Compass, there's Keller Williams. There's Century 21, there's Remax, there's hundreds and hundreds of different brokerages. I work at a very small single office boutique firm here in Beverly Hills. But you always want to ask your agent, what can your broker do to expose my property? Because the agent is going to do what they can do to expose the property, but then what can the broker do, right? Because it's a team effort. So just to give you an example, when I'm asked this question at a listing appointment, I always talk about what our reach is, right? So if you look on the bottom left, we had about 8.3 million views on YouTube, which is why it's important to have that video, right? Because we post all of our property videos on our YouTube page and we get a ton of views. We also have about 425,000 people following us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. So we have great exposure here in Los Angeles, obviously for the luxury high-end properties, and we're also advertising on the LA Times every single weekend. So always ask that question, what can they do, right? Because the more eyeballs that are on your property, the higher chance of you finding a buyer, and the more buyers you have walking through your property, the more offers you're going to get, and the more offers you're going to get, the higher price you're going to get, and the more money in your pockets. All right, so here is my bonus question. Why didn't my house sell the first time? Super, super important. Again, geared towards anybody who's had their house already on the market. Why didn't it sell, right? And this is what I do almost every single day. I analyze property and I try to figure out, okay, what didn't the agent do before that I can do differently in order to get it sold, right? And that's a super important question to ask every single agent that walks through your door, and any agent that you're going to interview. So here you can see some marketing mistakes. The first thing I do is obviously I look at price. Was it overpriced? Maybe it wasn't overpriced. Maybe it didn't sell because it was on the market, right during COVID. Yes, that's a possibility. But now everything is kind of back to normal. Another reason is really bad photography. Like I was telling you earlier, in my previous expired and canceled sales, you can see how I transformed the houses. So here on the left is a pretty funny photo I found on Google, and you can see how an agent did virtual staging in a house that was vacant, and how horrible it looks. So obviously this is an extreme example. I haven't actually seen this on the MLS, but I have seen a lot of really, really bad photography for houses, and photography is the most important thing. Okay, and not all photography is the same. You know, even if your agent says, oh, you know, I have a professional photographer coming, well, why don't you see what his work looks like, right? You want to see how that photography looks. So have them show you examples. The one in the middle, that's done by a professional photographer, and all I'm seeing is a driveway and a carport. I'm not seeing any house here. So and it's crazy that agents will put this photo here in the middle. They'll put that as the main photo of the house, and they wonder why, you know, you're not getting a lot of eyeballs on it, because people just scroll through it on Zillow, right? Everybody is on Zillow, Redfin, they're on Realtor.com, Trulia. Those are the big sites that buyers are using nowadays to look for properties. So the first photo is the most important photo when you know, when marketing your property, right? And I always suggest, this is a tip that you can give your agent. What I do, and this works actually very, very well. I change the main photo. I change it about every week or every 2 weeks, depending on how much traffic I'm getting. If I'm not getting a lot of calls on the property, I'll change the photo to something different, right? So I might have a great twilight shot of the pool in the house, or I might change that to an aerial shot, or I might change that to a front shot, or I might change that to a shot of the interior with the view, or the master, or the kitchen, or any of the wow photos, right? So whenever I have my photographer come to the property, he takes, you know, 50 to 70 photos, and I go through all those photos and I pick out the ones that I want to post on the MLS. I'm not a lazy agent. I'm not going to post everything, because you don't want to post all the photos. You want to post only the ones that are gonna add value to your house. Even if it's only 5 photos, you only add those 5 photos. You don't want to overdo the photos, because it's only gonna push a buyer away if they see, you know, something that they may not like. So only post the photos that are the best photos of your property. And tip: change the photos every 1 or 2 weeks if you're not getting any calls or any traction. The photo on the right is just an example of how some agents try to market properties. They're trying to hit the bullseye, but they always miss. So again, guys, you know, this is just you know, a webinar to help you understand you know, how to pick the right agent next time around. It's super important to have the right agent on your team. Otherwise, your house is going to sit on the market and you're going to end up selling for less. The longer a house sits on the market, like I showed you before, the less you're going to get. So, you know, even if you're hiring a friend, a family friend, or a family member, you know, are you willing to lose money because you want to, you know, hire somebody that you know, or should you hire a pro that knows what they're doing, that has the track record, and that can get your house sold for top dollar in the shortest amount of time? So ask yourself that question. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. You'll see my cell phone here in the slide, as well as my email and my website. And feel free to you know, check me out on Instagram at Paul Salazar Group. We do a live Q&A every Thursday, as of now at 6 p.m. And feel free to reach out whenever you want. I'm here to help you guys out. Thanks for watching.